Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Welcome back.
Thank you guys for joining us. And before we get started, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe and click the bell to both channels. So hopefully you'll get some notifications here and there.
Yes, thank you.
So we have a new earthquake swarm, and this is in La Palma under Cumbre Vieja. And whenever we see this is like a big, for me anyway, it's just like, okay, let's go look at the details right away. And thank you, Brother David, that sent me notification of this to check it out. With everything going on, the world, is kind of focused on Nashville and everything else, And then this one slips by until we take a peek at it. So what's up with La Palma? Well, La Palma is the one that people have talked about with the potential for a mega tsunami. So that's why we looked at La Palma very carefully, because the potential is there, according to some scientists, for basically an underwater portion of the volcano to collapse in an eruptive event.
Right, and that's really concerning. See, I never knew exactly why is this a problem? And then Mike explained more.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, over the almost 4 years now the channel's been up. And you see the question, could a tsunami destroy everything from Boston to Miami? And if it did, would we even stand a chance? There were some simulations that showed that that's exactly what would happen. And not just that, but the UK and France and Spain and Portugal and Africa on the Atlantic as well, and even over into Brazil. All of this would potentially be affected by a mega tsunami moving very, very fast. Some say as high as 3,000 feet of water. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, there are other scientists that come out and have said that there's no way that's happening. That's just, totally erroneous. So everybody has to find their own inner voice.
Yes, they got to find their own inner knowing.
So, there has been a swarm going on there. And if we look over at CSEM, this is in the last 48 hours, we could see there's quite a bit of activity going on. There have been swarms in the past as well. As you see the eruptions here, 1677 to 1678, 1585, 1646, 1712, 1949, 1971 did have eruptions as well. And we have had similar events several times in the past 3.5 years or so. So in these times, we pay a little bit more attention because we're seeing a lot of volcanoes going off. And we're seeing, a lot of quakes in unusual spots as well. So while this is something that has happened in the past, I still definitely watch it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so this is a 29-mile-long wedge-shaped island. And, this is absolutely amazing, gorgeous paradise when you look at it. This is one of the more beautiful parts of the world, which is volcanic. Again, life comes forth in these areas through the volcanic activity. And, right now we are seeing a lot of eruptions going on.
I know, and it keeps increasing and increasing and increasing.
And so, these eruptions have damaged populated areas in the past. So we will definitely watch La Palma.
Absolutely, we will.
And by the way, Puerto Rico has had more than a dozen quakes reported on Christmas Eve, and one that measured 4.8. There's been an awful lot of activity in the southwest area when you get past Ponce. And I've been all over Puerto Rico. I love the island. It's a beautiful area. The people are great. And, this southwestern coast is gorgeous. Rincon is some of the best surfing you're going to find in the area, on the west coast as well. But it's been very, very active in this area for over a year now.
Yeah, and that was never super common before.
Well, everything is up for grabs nowadays. We don't know what's going to happen next. We could always kind of do our best and try to do our best to forecast. And we thank people like Dutch Sense for showing us how to, have an idea where something's going to come. It is kind of relatively simple when you get down to it in some manners. But again, with the magnetosphere in decline, with the magnetic pole shift, excuse me, there, I need another cup of coffee. A magnetic pole shift underway, with them also kind of hiding the data. It's not easy to find. They don't seem to want to let us know exactly what's going on as far as that. And I do have friends, and there's EEA family out there that have been keeping track of it and showing that it seems that the Earth is fluctuating, perhaps even wobbling more than usual with the change in the magnetosphere. And all this leads to more cosmic rays penetrating, interacting with the core, and the potential for bigger quakes and volcanic activity. So we see here activity over in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, and it is normal to get swarms, but then they just seem to peak from time to time.
Yeah, and we like to keep an eye on that peaking.
Storm Bella to bring severe winds and flooding in parts of the UK on Boxing Day. So this storm is going to be impacting from the 26th to 27th. The Met Office has issued several yellow warnings for much of the country. Amber warnings are in place for parts of England and Wales. You'll get some high winds. You might get some sleet and snow as well. And, many areas had a very beautiful white Christmas.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, it changes the whole season when it's, kind of that traditional white Christmas.
I love to see the snow on the pine trees. It's so beautiful.
And you're going to have heavy rains and gales of up to 70 miles an hour in exposed coastal areas. So the storms, they're getting to be stronger, as we said. And, we've mentioned that fact that, is it part of everything that's going on with the decrease in the magnetosphere, or can there be technology involved as well? And I think there most definitely can be. Tropical storm Shalane to make landfall over Madagascar, heading towards Mozambique.
I like that name, Shalane. I hope it doesn't get too nasty.
Let's hope not. Now, this is the third named storm of the 2020 and 2021 season as well. It's forecast to make landfall over Madagascar on the 27th and then exit into the Mozambique Channel on the 28th and head towards Mozambique. Other countries like Malawi and Zimbabwe are also on alert and have coordinated disaster preparedness. So we'll keep an eye on this one as we go forward. And they say there's a mysterious asteroid the size of a dwarf planet lurking in our solar system. So they say that because the evidence comes from a space rock that impacted and exploded over Sudan in 2008, and it was loaded with diamonds.
Wow, that's amazing. I never knew that.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people that will say, send more this way, just have it explode over us so we could go pick up the diamonds later.
I wouldn't mind raining diamonds myself.
So this one may be as big as the dwarf planet Ceres, which is the largest object in the asteroid belt.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Now, this is interesting because we've seen a lot of revisionist history and we've seen a lot of scrambling going on to explain things that don't fit the pattern that they've given us. And we're talking about like NASA and NOAA and other, quote unquote, official sources. So the greening of the Earth mitigates surface warming. Well, if you do a decent amount of traveling and all, you get used to going into an urban zone. When you go into an urban zone, especially a big city, like a Phoenix or something like that, it's so easy to tell the difference when you get into the concrete jungles and how that stores and amplifies the heat. And then even if you're not going to a higher altitude, just getting out into the woods and it's, 10 degrees cooler, 15 degrees cooler.
Absolutely. That's like super common.
So while there's so much going on that is apparently very, very negative, and there is, as we've talked about the fracking, we've talked about the rainforest and, that the lungs of the earth being cut away. At the same time, in many areas, the earth is becoming greener than it's been in a very, very long time, which is curious as well.
So once again, they're having to rewrite everything.
So, a new study published on the journal Science Advances titled Biophysical Impacts of Earth Greening Largely Controlled by Aerodynamic Resistance reports that the entire land surface would have been much warmer without the cooling effect of increased green cover during the recent decades. And again, they've had to explain why, well, like, Al Gore said, like 10, 15 years ago, we were going to be totally ice-free in the Arctic, and we're not. There are new passageways that have opened up, but then at the same time, in some areas, the ice is building. So what's happening is change, and we know it's changing, and eventually, as we're told, there'll be a new heaven and a new earth, and the new earth, will look different, and we have Edgar Casey speaking of new land rising in the Atlantic and the Pacific, and of course the new heavens. Well, why would the heavens look different? Well, perhaps crustal displacement after a pole shift, and everything's in a different position. And the Inuit said that years ago, over 10 years ago, they said, you know what, the Earth's not in the same position. It's changed. The sky is not the same. We know the sky. So, I mean, this was a decade ago that they were talking about this, and we're in this process. It's a process of great, great change. And yet, even with all the urbanization, it's getting greener in some areas, and the Earth can bounce back so fast and clean itself. Again, the Earth is a living being, and many have speculated too that, like, if humanity was all of a sudden gone from the planet and there were no more humans here, it might not take too long before you couldn't tell there was ever a human here.
Well, I do believe that's right. I mean, look how fast little things grow over like a simple trail.
So interesting that the greening-induced cooling effect was 25 times stronger than the warming effect caused by tropical deforestation. And like we're saying, just, give it not even a full generation or two, and the Earth would just bounce back so fast. And really, we could do this with proper, with good leadership, as opposed to the abusive leadership that we see on this planet that doesn't care about, it seems, anything that's living on this planet. And by the way, they think they've videotaped the jetpack guy or gal or guys or gals or whatever they are. And this is sighting off Palos Verdes. As you see, somebody seems to be just kind of flying about in the air. So, I mean, they're saying it appears to be a guy with a jetpack on just whizzing around out there. There's been multiple sightings of this in California. It's very, very curious. So who is this jetpack guy? Is this a new superhero that we have, or is it a Chinese super soldier doing scouting?
I don't know, but this is kind of fun to watch.
It is. So, it's weird. Is it Elon Musk maybe? Maybe he wants to be the new Batman or something.
That wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. So when it comes to weird stories that keep getting weirder, the elusive jetpack guy of Los Angeles pretty much takes the cake after multiple reported sightings from airline pilots on more than one occasion of a guy in a jetpack flying around at thousands of feet near Los Angeles International Airport, some of the most congested airspace on Earth, as well as ongoing FAA and FBI investigations into the matter. We have now credible video of what seems to be the flying object in question. The footage doesn't come to us from some random Reddit board or YouTube channel either. It was taken during an instructional flight from Sling Pilot Academy in the training area off Palos Verdes. We reached out to the flight school, which is based in Zamperini Field in Torrance, California, for additional details. One of the pilots involved in the bizarre incident told the War Zone that they were flying along their route in the practice area between Palos Verdes and Catalina Island when they caught what appeared to be, at least it resembled a guy in a jetpack flying towards them in the opposite direction at about 3,000 feet. The object passed alongside the right side of the aircraft and kept going till it was out of sight. There was no communication from the object or about the object on the usually busy radio channel used for training in the area. As such, the pilots did report the encounter with the FAA, but because there wasn't really any details to add, an official report was not filed. Interesting. And so there's video down there. I'll give you guys the link as always. Interesting. Do we have a new superhero amongst us or what?
I sure hope so. I really, really do.
That would be cool. Screen zombies. The average person is going to spend 44 years looking at digital devices, and that's before the lockdown. So that's gone up as even more.
I find that sad.
It is. I mean, we're in our own virtual world so much of the time.
We are. It is a sad thing for humanity, I feel.
Well, I think when we get some of these prolonged outages that, many feel are coming and we've been told are coming, it might be really hard for some to deal with. When you think about it, that feeling of being cut off from knowing what's happening out there, it could be overwhelming for some people. What are they going to do when they spend, one study was showing people spend 17 hours a day looking at devices.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is. Just think about it. That would be a shock to the system. So, guys, as always, thank you for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Again, make sure you're subscribed and prepare for the worst, but send out the intentions for the best.
Yes, please do.
As always, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.